So here we are at the start of the school year, the start of fall, and the start of fall also means the start of football season. So I have a question for you. Why did the football coach go to the bank? To get the quarterback. Um, and now, before we get on to the rest of our notes, I'm going to do a shout out to all the underdogs this season. I wish them well, and go Browns. All right, now let's go ahead and we can talk about some algebra. If you take a look at the title, it is proportion and fraction equations. Real quick, what is a proportion? It's an equation stating two ratios are equal. To solve them, what we do is, it's called cross multiply, but basically you go from the top across diagonally down in that direction. So A times D and then C times B. So we're going to start that right now with problem number 1. We'll go ahead and do the cross multiplication. Whenever you get something in the middle like this variable, this is considered a numerator, so it would be 3a times 10. We'll go ahead and show that. 3a times 10, which is 30a, and then 5 times 1 times 5 is 5. And then to solve for a, we just divide both sides by 30. A is equal to 1/6. On the next one for number 2, what we have is we have still a proportion. It's an expression in our numerator, but it's still a proportion, and we will still cross multiply. Now this -5 is not a fraction, but we can easily make it a fraction. We can put it over 1. And so when we do that, n times 1, whenever we're working with expressions, we're going to just put it in parentheses and end up distributing. -5 times 4, -20. So 1 times n plus 12 is n plus 12 equal to -20. And then to keep solving for n, we will go ahead and subtract 12 on both sides. N equals -32. Now for problem number 3, same thing, we're going to go ahead and do our cross multiplication. Again, we have a negative right here in the middle. When you have a negative, you can assign it to either the numerator or the denominator. Typically, I assign it to the numerator. So we're going to start with 3y plus 2 times 6. So this is what it looks like, 3y plus 2. So we have that expression in parentheses. It ends up being distributed. And then -5 times 4 is -20. We distribute to solve. So 18y plus 12 is equal to -20. And then we just, two-step problem. So to keep solving for y, we subtract 12 on both sides. We have 18y is equal to -32. And then we'll divide both sides by 18. And so now we're getting into problems where, well, I know -32 doesn't go into 18 evenly. And so many of you are using your calculator, which is fine to help you simplify. But when our problems start as fractions, our answers need to be fractions, okay? So if I had a decimal answer, I would not give you full credit. So this is where there's lots of ways to come up with your answer. You can simplify by finding, okay, well, I know that 2 goes into both 32 and 18, and we get -16/9. 9 goes into -16 one time, and then the remainder is 7/9. So this is an acceptable answer for problem number 3. Okay. If you have questions, we'll make sure to revisit this in class. And actually, we'll go ahead and do 4. Next time I see you in class, we'll get a similar answer. Let's jump down to number 5. For problem number 5, same thing where we will cross multiply. When we cross multiply these expressions, -x minus 4 times 5, we end up distributing, and then it'll be -2x plus 1 times 7. My next step will distribute, so we get -5x minus 20 is equal to -14x plus 7. And then we'll go ahead and start with our variable terms, get them to one side. So I add 14x to both sides. When I do that, we get 9x minus 20 is equal to 7. So now I'm going to add 20 to both sides. Oh my goodness, you could not see what I was doing. I got so into my math that I didn't look at my screen. I apologize. So quickly copy that down. Then we have 9x is equal to 27. Divide both sides by 9. X is equal to 3. Okay, we'll do number 6 as well next time I see you in class, okay? So that way you can get all of that. Let's go ahead and flip it over. Now what I have on the back here is I have fraction equations. We're going to solve for the equations by finding the least common denominator, the LCD. I'm going to point out right now that the way that I teach you in class, this is because we are practicing for different kinds of equations, quadratic equations that we are going to do second semester. Okay, so doing this now, understanding this now is going to help you when you there is no other choice with quadratic functions. It will also be required. It's required on your homework and on your test. Okay. So what we're going to do for these problems is we are going to eliminate fractions. So we're going to solve this without fractions. To eliminate the fractions is we find the least common denominator. So I look at my denominators 2 and 4. The least common denominator between the two is 4. Then I'm going to multiply every term in the equation by 4. 1/2 times 4 is 2x. Like I said, every term. So 7 times 4 is 28. 3/4 times 4 is 3x. -4 times 4 is -16. This comes back to the rule that you can't just do it to one term or two terms. It has to be all the terms. So just like how if we add to one side, we have to add to the other. Same thing here is if we're going to multiply one term by 4, all the terms have to be by 4 to remain and keep the equality. Now notice what I have in this equation is I have eliminated fractions. Real easy to solve now. I'll just go ahead and subtract by 2x on both sides. When I do that, we get 28 is equal to x minus 16. Then I add 16 to both sides. 44 is equal to x. All right, let's try this again for number 8. Number 8, we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at what the LCD is, the least common denominator. And so again, the least common denominator is 4. We're going to multiply the entire equation by 4. Again, you can't just do one fraction. It has to be every term to maintain that equality. 3/4 times 4 is 3x. -5 times 4 is -20. 1/2 times 4 is 2x. -4 times 4 is -16. And then we'll go ahead and solve for x again. I start with my variable terms and the smaller of the variable terms. So I subtract 2x on both sides. I get x minus 20 is equal to -16. Then we add 20 to both sides. X is equal to 4. We'll do number 9 together next time I see you, okay? Let's go to number 10. Number 10, again, we're going to, I see there are fractions in this equation. We are going to eliminate fractions. To eliminate fractions, we multiply by the LCD. Again, this is a requirement when you see fraction equations. The LCD between 3 and 5 is 15. Every term is going to get multiplied by 15. So 1/3 times 15 is 5. We get 5x. 3 times 15 is 45x. 4/5 times 15 is -12. Okay. Then I solve for my variable. I have to start with my variable terms, get them to the other side because I only have the constant here. So I subtract 45x on both sides. 5x minus 45x is -40x. is equal to negative 12. To keep solving for x, I divide by negative 40. X is equal to, well, this is going to, it doesn't go in evenly. I'm not going to get a nice integer answer, but I want to make sure that we leave our answers as fractions. So I can go ahead and divide out a 4 from both terms to simplify. And again, we're going to leave it as simplified fractions. X is equal to 3/10. Okay. We'll do 11 next time I see you in class. And then the last one I'll go ahead and do on this video. Okay, so on this last one, what I want to show you is before you try and multiply by any LCDs like we did 7, 8, and 10, if you see parentheses, you have to distribute first. That is a must. So let's go ahead and distribute, then we'll see if we have any fractions, and then multiply by the LCD. So again, if you see parentheses, you distribute first. 2/3 times 6, okay? So real quick, it's 2 times 6, which is 12, divided by 3 is 4. We get that 4x. So 2/3 times 6, 2/3 times a 9. Okay, so 2 times 9 is 18, divided by 3 is 6. I'm going to keep distributing. I have 6x minus 10. Okay, now, do we have any fractions? We do not. So there's no fractions we have to eliminate. This is now just a normal multi-step problem, and we are solving for x. Starting with your variable terms, I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. Remember, I chose 4x because it's the smaller of the two terms. I have 6 is equal to 2x minus 10. Add 10 to both sides. We have 16 is equal to 2x. Divide both sides by 2. X is equal to 8. Okay, and that's it. I am done with today's notes. I will see you guys next time.